Okay, this video is called Theme Songs to Save America, and I will put the links to the songs down below. A little bit of background information is that when you start to read about history and about current events, you basically have an experience somewhat like Alice when she went through the looking glass. You know, Alice in Wonderland, and the second follow-up sequel was Through the Looking Glass. And when she's on the other side of the mirror, she saw things in a different way. And one of the things I've been sharing with you in my videos is that the scientific foundation of internal medicine and the internal medicine subspecialties is a joke. It's basically a house of cards that falls apart on close inspection. And that's relevant because there's other important things that are like that. I also emphasize that once you go down the path of atheistic Darwinism, there are no rules. As Fyodor Dostoevsky had said back in the 1800s, if there is no God, then everything is permitted. Everything, even cannibalism. Basically, you end up with might is right, okay? Rule by force. All right, and here's just a typical example. Harvard used to be considered, the greatest university in the United States, one of the best in the world, and it's now become a joke. Okay, top Harvard cancer researchers accused of scientific fraud, 37 studies affected. Okay, the research is a joke. Everything becomes about money once you take God out of the picture. And this is just reality. Some people say, oh, I shouldn't talk about God. You have to talk about God because if you don't have a moral foundation, you really can't accomplish much. The United States is becoming a third world banana republic joke of a country because it's gone all the way down the path of atheistic Darwinism. And that's intentional because a ruler wants atheistic Darwinism. It's like England wanted atheistic Darwinism, many of them in the 1800s, because it gave them total power over their colonized entities. You declare that people are just talking monkeys with no soul, then you can do whatever you want to them. Okay? Now, here is the billionaire perverts who run the world, and believe me, they've got the money to run the world. They are now declaring they want all countries to lower. Well, I don't know about all countries, but they're declaring they want as many countries as they can to force them to lower the age of consent for you know what to 12 years old. Okay, which does not sound reasonable to me. And another thing that's bizarre, I grew up, back in the 1970s. I'm 60 years old. And when I was a kid, we all said, this is America, this is a Christian country, Russia is a crap hole, it's a, godless communism. We used to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school, hold your hand over your heart, I pledge allegiance to one nation under God, one nation under God. Back then, we used to say e pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. The United States was portrayed as a melting pot. People come from all over the world, but they are Americans. And my parents were both like that. My father was from Ireland, my mother's from Puerto Rico, but they wouldn't say they were Puerto Rican or that they were Irish. They would say we are Americans, okay? Everybody wanted to be American, okay? America was the greatest country in the world. It was obvious, all right? And the reason I go to that now, it's like the world's turned upside down. Putin is accusing Western leaders of pedophilia and cannibalism, okay? That's not a misprint. Putin, the head of Russia, which used to be the godless crap hole, Reagan had called it the evil empire, is now lecturing USA about morals, and that's not good. Okay, Putin also said that Zelensky is persecuting the Orthodox Christian monks, but that he will defend the Christian monks. So Putin is putting himself forth as a defender of Christians. That's the last thing in the world you would ever expect to hear from like Stalin. Okay, Putin says that the USA is immoral, that it's anti-family, that it's full of pedophilia and cannibals. He says that marriage should be between one man and one woman. Okay, this is coming out of Russia. They're lecturing the USA about morals. I don't know about you guys, but that's an extraordinary thing compared to what I knew in the past. Okay, and here's something called the Georgia Guidestones. And the Georgia Guidestones have been called the 10 Commandments of the billionaire perverts. And one of the most important ones, the two top ones are the most important ones to be aware of. To maintain humanity under 500 million persons in perpetuity, forever. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that over 90%, about 93% of the population, they want them gone. Gone, okay? So this is big time poop-ulation control, all right? And so the one thing, one of my friends told me that basically the billionaire perverts, I don't know how it all works, but he says something in their policy or their group that they're members of requires them to be out in the open about what they're going to do, and that basically the public is so stupid, they tell the public what they're going to do, and the public hears it, but actually most people don't even hear it. But the public's so stupid, it doesn't even take it seriously or recognize it or get it. Okay, when they say guide reproduction wisely, to them, to the person who hears that, they think, oh, that sounds nice. No, what they want is eugenics and sterilization. And I've given you lectures before. You're being sterilized. I mean, it's so obvious. I rattled off, like 15 different chemicals that are in your food, your air, your water to sterilize you. And that's not even the end of it. There's a lot more, but we're not going to have time to get into that right now. Okay, but they have put it in writing, and it's been in writing for decades. None of these are my own ideas. This is all stuff that's been in writing for decades, that they want to reduce the world's population by about 93%. That means musical chairs for the surviving people. I think they want to get rid of the Christians as fast as they can because they see them as a nuisance, because Christians say that everybody's equal in the eyes of God, and they don't want that. No, no, no. The rulers, the people with the money, might is right. They are right no matter what they say and what they do. Okay, and another reason why they hate Christianity is if you look at the history of the Philippines, like Father Patrick Peyton and whatnot, basically when Marcos, the ruler back in the 1980s, would tell his troops to, fire on the public, they say, no, we're not going to do that. They're Christians and we are Christians. We're not going to do that to them, okay? So I think in the long run, what the billionaire perverts are going to do is try to hire, persons to be their guards and their force who are going to not like the native population. So when they're told to fire on the public, they will do it. That's what I think is happening right now. And I think that's part of the open you-know-what down south, is to get people in that they will then put into positions of power and use them against the public. That's my prediction of what's going on. Not that I ever know anything, but I've been pretty good at predicting stuff in the past. So, oops, I just do it because, you have to make predictions to survive. Okay, so what's the whole point of this video? Why am I going on and on? Oh, crap, I screwed that up. I wanted to show the previous slide. This is a great song. It's called I Will Serve the Lord. The singer is this lady here, Kennedy Anderson. And what is this all about? Here's kind of the bottom line right now. USA is being destroyed, but it's not destroyed yet. It's not totally hopeless. It gets worse every day, but it's not totally hopeless. And this is basically what people see as the two ways it's going to go. Either there's going to be revival of Bible ethics and Christianity, and freedom's going to come back and everything's going to get better for everybody, or we're going to undergo what's been called the great you-know-what reset. And that's going to be progressive techniques designed to remove 93% of the population. And the billionaire perverts, they say, oh, we're doing it for a good reason. The world's too polluted. The water's polluted. The sky's polluted. Everything's polluted. But, you have to wonder. They're the same ones that are spraying you-know-what into the sky with the trails, the chem, the AL and all that. They're doing that, and then they lecture everyone else about pollution. They turn the cities into third world crap holes, and then they tell everybody else we need to be concerned about the environment. Okay? So it's a little hard to take that seriously, okay? They pollute the water in a massive way themselves, but then tell us not to pollute the water, okay? So anyways, this is a magnificent song. I will serve the Lord. And so what I basically say to ourselves is, unfortunately, big money is pushing towards this, and big money has the advantage at the current time, but hopefully we'll make it to this, the great, awakening. And this is a great song. I will serve the Lord. That's kind of how I feel. Sooner or later, they're probably going to, the billionaire perverts are probably going to win, and we're all going to be, wiped off the face of the earth. But hopefully freedom will continue. Until it does, I'll serve the Lord until my time comes. Okay, here is another good theme song. And this is the one called Rich Men North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony. And what he basically pointed out is, the billionaire perverts, they're just doing all kinds of things on an island with kids and who knows what else. And, they're not serving the public, that's for sure. There were some other good songs there. I like this one, Where I Find God, Larry Fleet. That was a real good song, I thought. It's how you live your daily life. Okay, here's another one, too. This is sort of the arm wrestling match between Jesus Christou and Beelzebub here. And I think people need to think for themselves and act for themselves. Here is St. Augustine. He said, wrong is wrong even if everyone's doing it. And that's the way it is. You know, evil is being normalized, mainstreamed in society, okay? And good behavior is being sort of scandalized, if you will. Okay, Dostoevsky, another quote. God and the devil are fighting for the heart of men. Sometimes, even if he has to do it alone, and his conduct seems crazy, a man must set an example and so draw men's souls out of their solitude and spur them on to some act of brotherly love that the great idea may not die. So that kind of reminds me too a little bit of St. Francis. St. Francis was asked to rebuild a church, and with the bricks and the building materials, he rebuilt the church of San Damiano, Saint Damiano. But what I'm saying is, what people said St. Francis actually did more than that. Was he inspired people about living a good life, and so that had more of an effect than anything he did in the physical world, so to speak. So anyway, here's a great song. It's a new one. It's new to me. "Take It All Back" by Torrin Wells. Um, I'll talk about that a little more here in a sec. So here's actually an image from the video. He's dancing around, and it's a great song, "Take It All Back," and it's sort of basically saying, you know, let America be Christian and good again. I mean, it's kind of an extraordinary thing. It's here is just some crazy meme picture, but basically, the billionaire perverts know that they need to get rid of God in terms of the Christian God in order to control everybody in the world, because once that's gone, there'll be no metaphysical, philosophical position to justify freedom for anybody. Um, all that stuff that we took so long, it's enshrined in the Constitution, the First Amendment, that we should have free speech, but they're just going to label anything that speaks up for freedom. They're going to label it as hate speech or misinformation, and they're just going to keep on censoring people. So I hope things will get better. But anyways, "Take It All Back" by Torrin Wells is a really good song. It's a great song. Okay, and like I said too, there's been different conflicts between good and evil since the beginning of time. If you read Paradise Lost, for example, there was the conflict between the good angels with Jesus Christo and God versus, the fallen angels, Lucifer. And that goes right back to, the battle in the beginning of the world, if you will. Okay. Um, and then I'm just going to make a few more points so people have a little bit more of an idea of what's at stake. With Christianity, you have this big world view. I could care less about the dogma between the different groups. They don't matter. What matters is the Ten Commandments, and then, Jesus Christus saying, "Love thy neighbor, be nice to each other." Okay, Ayn Rand's same quote that basically says the same thing in another way. The smallest minority is the individual. If you guarantee individual rights, everything else will follow. Okay, so here's the Pietà by Michelangelo, the most beautiful, magnificent sculpture ever made. Okay, here's a magnificent, beautiful painting, the friendship where the bishop forgives Jean Valjean. And, it had been said, the person who quoted, I think it was Petronius in the book Quo Vadis by Henry Sienkiewicz, and he said, basically, the ancient Greeks brought to the world poetry and wisdom. The ancient Romans brought to the world knowledge of power and how power is wielded. And then it was the Christians, the early Christians of that time, who brought to the world, a better appreciation of love and forgiveness. It's an extraordinary book, Quo Vadis. It's one of the greatest novels ever written. And what I'm trying to say is atheism makes everything they do stink, literally and figuratively. So here's a modern art museum, and run by atheist scumbags. And look, they make statues of feces. And that's what everything turns into in an atheistic society, statues of feces. Okay, and people try to say atheism is a morally defensible position. It's not. Everybody's got to go through it as an individual to figure out where their thoughts and values are at. But what they don't understand is if you say atheism is a reasonable position, what you're basically saying is that humans are talking monkeys with no intrinsic rights. And what that means is the ruler in an atheistic society becomes the equivalent of God, like a Roman emperor. Some of these Roman emperors, they would insist on having a different concubine in their bed every single night. They could just walk up to you, any person in their society, and say, "I want your daughter in my bed tonight." Okay, and you would have no right of refusal. You would have to go along with that. They could do whatever they want, okay? They could do whatever they want to you or anyone else in your family. You have zero rights. And when you say that atheism is correct, you're basically saying that is correct. The ruler should determine everything. And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand philosophy or ethics or religion at all, because that's why the rulers understand it, and that's why they want it. Okay, so this is what you get. You get an art museum filled with statues of feces. And then also, things become totally corrupt. The big money players, they use these fake modern art museums, the emperor's new clothes, as a way to launder money. Okay, it's a big fake joke. Oh, actually, I wanted to show that last slide. So basically, with love of God and mankind and Christianity, it leads to trying to save people. Like, this is the greatest novel ever written, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And then here's a quote by Jesus Christo, John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Okay? When you look at, the French Rev back in the 1790s, it was more than a rejection of the king. It was a replacement of God with atheism. And with atheism, you have rejected God and you make the ruler, someone like Robespierre, into the equivalent of a god. And what are they going to do? Once there are nothing to hold them back, they just start to, take the lives of everybody they don't like. And so that's a terrible thing for society. It's not good for society at all. And then getting back to how everything stinks with atheism, here's a quote by Tom Wolfe, the great writer, American writer of the 1900s. He said, modern office buildings look like animal cages, and they always have a statue of a turd in front. And he's absolutely correct. Here's a statue of a turd in front of an office building that looks like an animal cage, okay? And they would say, well, animal cages are appropriate for talking primates. If you're just a talking monkey with no soul, why should you care about aesthetic beauty? And then people try to pretend that Picasso was some type of good artist. Picasso was a total commie, okay? Picasso stinks. Picasso's a disgusting disgrace, phony, all right? And look at this garbage, okay? A child could make that, all right? A child could make this. This is not art. It's nonsense. You want to see real art? Look at a cathedral, the most beautiful buildings ever made with love and devotion. They're magnificent, made by all these craftsmen who didn't even sign their name on their work. They're spectacular. Look at these windows. They're like the rose window, okay? And there's a story to it and the beauty of all the colors and the light coming in, the aspiration towards the heavens and the ceiling. It's beautiful. It's magnificent, okay? And people don't understand that if you don't speak up for all this good stuff, you lose it. And what I've seen, in my time was, back when I first started studying science in a serious way, back around 1980, there was some respect back then for the truth, okay? And nowadays, though, science is really kind of a joke. It's like a synonym for advertising. Big money just buys it. Scientists are poor, and it forces them to do whatever they're told. They don't have any money. If they want to keep getting grant money, want to get promoted, want to keep their jobs, be able to do anything in their field, they have to do whatever big industry says, big pharma, big food. And so that's why their industry-funded papers are almost always worthless. Okay, here was just showing that in the year 2023, over 10,000 medical research papers were rejected. Over 10,000. You go back to about the year 2000 itself, only about 100 were rejected. So that's a massive, that's 1,000% increase. And that's because everything's so corrupt and bogus, okay? Plus, they'll publish something that's not true. They know it's not true, but when it has the initial publication, it has a lot of influence on people. And then later on, they silently retract it. They knew all along it was not true. So this is what's happened to medical research. Okay, so I guess that's all of my slides. So I hope that was interesting and helpful. I'll put the links to those songs down below.